Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the International Conference on World Breastfeeding Week, Breastfeeding, Diet and Nutrition, Parenting, Education, Health, Well-being, Environment, and Sustainable Development 2024, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 76 years of independence and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns. In collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Art, Sciences and Wellbeing, an international and national fraternity. So today, before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's commemorations. Today, we are commemorating International Day of the World Indigenous People. Centuries-old marginalization and other varying vulnerabilities are some of the reasons why indigenous people do not have the same possibilities of access to education, health system, or digital communications. This year, with the theme Protecting the Rights of Indigenous Peoples in Voluntary Isolation and Initial Contact. Every year on 9th August, International Day of World's Indigenous People is celebrated. Indigenous people make up less than 6% of the global population, but they represent at least 15% of the extremely poor. Indigenous peoples' territories encompass 28% of the surface of the globe and contain 11% of the world's forest. They are guardians of most of the world's remaining biodiversity. Indigenous people's food systems have high levels of self-sufficiency, ranging from 50 to 80% in food and resource generation. Around 200 groups of indigenous peoples currently live in voluntary isolation and initial contact. They reside in remote forests, such in rich in natural resources in Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, India, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Peru, and Venezuela. They choose to live detached from the rest of the world, and their mobility pattern allows them to engage in gathering and hunting, thereby preserving their cultures and languages. These peoples have a strict dependency on their ecological environment. Any changes to their natural habitat can harm both the survival of individual members and the group as a whole. Despite their right to autonomy as enshrined in the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation and initial contact face unique challenges often overlooked by the surrounding world. Developments for agriculture, mining, tourism, and natural resources in their territories is resulting in the deforestation of swaths of indigenous people's forest, disrupting their way of life and destroying the natural environment that they have protected for generations. For indigenous people living in voluntary isolation and initial contact, one of the most serious threats from external contact is exposure to diseases. Due to their isolation, they do not have the immunological defenses to relatively common diseases. As such, forced contact with the outside world can lead to devastating consequences and can destroy the whole societies. The International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples 2024 is focusing on protecting the rights of indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation and initial contact. Indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation and initial contact are the best protectors of the forest, where their collective rights to lands and territories are protected. The forests thrive alongside their societies, and not only is their survival crucial to the protection of our planet, but it is crucial to the protection of cultural and linguistic diversity. In today's hyper-connected world, the existence of indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation and initial contact is a testament to the rich and complex tapestry of humanity and is a huge loss to our world if they cease to exist. We need indigenous communities for a better world. There are an estimated 476 million indigenous peoples in the world living across 90 countries. They make up less than 6% of the world's population, but account for at least 15% of the poorest. They speak an overwhelming majority of the world's estimated 7,000 languages and represent 500 different cultures. Indigenous peoples are inheritors and practitioners of unique cultures and the ways of relating to people and environment. They have retained social, cultural, economic, and political characteristics that are distinct from those of the dominant societies in which they live. Despite their cultural differences, indigenous peoples from around the world share common problems related to the protection of their rights as distinct peoples. Indigenous peoples have sought recognition of their identities, their way of life, and their right to traditional lands, territories, and natural resources for years. Yet, throughout the history, their rights have been violated. Indigenous peoples today are arguably among the most disadvantaged and vulnerable groups of people in the world. The international community now recognizes that special measures are required to protect their rights and maintain their distinct cultures and the way of life. In order to raise awareness of the needs of these population groups, every 9th August commemorates the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples, chosen in recognition of the first meeting of the UN Working Group on Indigenous Populations held in Geneva in 1982. This decade is also known as Decade of Indigenous Languages from 2022 to 2032, as at least 40% of the 7,000 languages used worldwide are at some level of endangerment. Indigenous languages are particularly vulnerable because many of them are not taught at school or used in the public sphere. This year, we start another important milestone to advocate for indigenous cultures, the Decade of Indigenous Languages, as was introduced in 2020. And now in 2024, we are having the updates on this decade after 2 years. So the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed the period between 2022 and 2032 as International Decade of Indigenous Languages, in short known as IDIL, 2022 and 2032, to draw global attention on the critical situation of many indigenous languages and to mobilize stakeholders and resources for their preservation, revitalization, and promotion. The proclamation of an international decade is a key outcome of 2019 International Year of Indigenous Languages, for which the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, lead global efforts. The organization will continue to serve as lead UN agency for the implementation of the International Decade in cooperation with the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA in short, and other UN relevant agencies. When we look at the background, as we need indigenous communities for a better world, and indigenous peoples have sought recognition of their identities, their way of life, and their right to traditional lands, territories, and natural resources for years. Yet, throughout history, their rights have been violated. In order to raise awareness of the needs of these population groups, every 9th August commemorates the International Day of the world's indigenous peoples, chosen in recognition of the first meeting of the UN Working Group on Indigenous Populations held in Geneva in 1982. By resolution 49 by 214 of 23rd December 1994, the United Nations General Assembly decided that the International Day of World's Indigenous Peoples shall be observed on 9th August every year. The date marks the day of first meeting in 1982 of the UN Working Group in Indigenous Populations of Subcommission on the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights. As requested in the outcome document of the 2014 World Conference on Indigenous Peoples, a UN system-wide action plan on the rights of indigenous peoples was developed by the later agency support group on indigenous issues in 2015. In consultation with indigenous peoples, UN member states, UN agencies, and other stakeholders. It aims to ensure a coherent approach to achieving the ends of UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, including through improved support to member states and indigenous peoples. In terms of special events related to indigenous peoples, in 1990, the UN General Assembly proclaimed in 1993 the 1993 as the International Year of the World's Indigenous Peoples, as per Resolution 45 by 164 and 47 by 75. Later, the General Assembly established two international decades of World Indigenous Peoples, the first 1995 to 2004, Wide Resolution 48 by 163, and the second 2005 to 2014, Resolution 59 by 174, with the goal of strengthening international cooperation for solving problems faced by indigenous peoples in areas such as human rights, the environment development, education, health, economic, and social development. 2022 marks the beginning of a new decade for the indigenous community. The celebration of the decade of indigenous languages from 2022 to 2032, a door that was opened previously in 2019 with the celebration of International Year of Languages. Let's watch a short video. In the meanwhile, I request all the presenters who have registered for presentation, kindly share your details in the chat box so that we can invite you after these commemorations for presentations.
Para nós, território é vida. Todo povo. Para nós, território é vida. Todo povo do Brasil, que são mais de 305 povos, estão sofrendo com os ataques. Os parentes Yanomami, as crianças desnutridas por causa do garimpo. Meu nome é Alessandra Curapi, sou do povo Munduruku, sou coordenadora da Associação Indígena Pariripe. A gente vai, muitas vezes, fazer esse papel de fiscalização, e hoje a gente se chama autodemarcação. O povo, né, os guerreiros, as mulheres, idosos, pajé, foram para a mata fazer autodemarcação, né? Botar a placa, expulsar madeireiro, expulsar grileiro, dizer que o território era nosso. Se a gente não fazer esse papel, né, de fiscalizar, o território é derrubado, é queimado, para botar pasto, para colocar soja, as mineradoras de óleo. Como mulher, encontrei barreira sim. No início não foi fácil, porque tem a cultura patriarcal, que os homens têm vozes, as mulheres não. Mas a gente mostramos que nós era capazes, que nós queríamos sim defender o território. Mulheres não negociam vida dos nossos filhos. Nós nunca negociamos vida do nosso povo. E vamos continuar a resistir. Só um dia, se tiver notícia, mataram a Alessandra, pelo menos eu fiz algo de defender o meu território, defender o meu povo.
In 1945, when the United Nations was established, indigenous peoples were among the most disadvantaged groups in the world. For centuries, They have been the custodians of our planet's natural resources and biological diversity, yet their importance and their unique concerns were largely ignored. Dedicated to recognizing the rights of indigenous peoples, the United Nations created a space for dialogue about some of the most pressing issues for indigenous populations: land rights, protection of languages, health, participation in decision-making, and their recognition as peoples, culminating in the adoption of the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples by the General Assembly in 2007. Today, there are some 370 million indigenous peoples living in over 90 countries. With the support of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues continues to provide a global platform to promote the rights of indigenous peoples now and for future generations.
Indigenous peoples represent around 6% of the world's population. Yet their stewardship signifies an outsized contribution to our global community. They are the keepers of knowledge and traditions that help safeguard some of the most biodiverse areas of our planet. As guardians of the environment, their survival is our survival. Their unique way of life is a testament to the rich tapestry of humanity. But they also face serious challenges that threaten their very existence. Indigenous peoples are often the victims of threats and violence. Extractive and productive sectors like mining, agriculture and transport have accelerated deforestation and land degradation. Ancestral homelands and natural resources that they depend on for survival are coming under siege. And their rights to self-determination and agency, enshrined in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, are yet to be fulfilled. This year's theme reminds us of their rights to protect themselves from unwanted contact. Contact that can have a devastating impact. Exposure to infectious diseases, forced assimilation, and the disruption of culture, language, and livelihoods. Today and every day, the world must stand behind the rights of indigenous peoples to chart their own futures. Together, let us safeguard their rights to live in peace and dignity.
You okay? You need a minute? Cool. Okay. Listen up, people. I know a thing or two about extinction. And let me tell you, and you'd kind of think this would be obvious, going extinct is a bad thing. And driving yourselves extinct? In 70 million years, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster, and yet every year governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. Imagine if we had spent hundreds of billions per year subsidizing giant meteors. That's what you're doing right now. Think of all the other things you could do with that money. Around the world, people are living in poverty. Don't you think helping them would make more sense than, I don't know, paying for the demise of your entire species? Let me be real for a second. You've got a huge opportunity right now. As you rebuild your economies and bounce back from this pandemic, this is humanity's big chance. So here's my wild idea. Don't choose extinction. Save your species before it's too late. It's time for you humans to stop making excuses and start making changes. Thank you.
Indigenous languages are the matter for development and peace building and reconciliation. Languages play a crucial role in daily lives of people, and not only as a tool for communication, education, social integration, and development, but also a repository for each person's unique identity, cultural history, traditions, and memory. But despite their immense value, languages around the world continue to appear at an alarming rate. With this in mind, the world continued to disappear at an alarming rate. With this in mind, the United Nations declared 2019 the Year of Indigenous Languages in order to raise awareness of them, not only to benefit the people who speak these languages, but also for others to appreciate the important contribution they make to our world's rich cultural diversity. So today is also commemorated as Adivasi Divas on August 9, 2024, which is coinciding with the International Day of the World Indigenous Peoples declared by the United Nations in 1993. Adivasi refers to the various tribes living in the Indian subcontinent, while Divas means day in Hindi. So, despite several advancements in modern society, indigenous peoples are often among the poorest ethnic groups. Adivasi Divas seeks to recognize the challenges these people continue to face today, as well as honor their perseverance and struggle for improvement. Around 104 million people, over 9% of India's population, fall into this category. The Adivasi are the indigenous tribes of the Indian subcontinent. People from these tribes live as foragers or as tribalistic sedimentary communities, primarily in India. The term also refers to ethnic minorities in the neighboring countries of Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, but India does not recognize tribes as indigenous people. These tribes are considered to be original inhabitants of India before the Dravidian and Indo-Aryan people. However, many present-day Adivasi communities were formed after the decline of the Indus Valley civilization. Although the Adivasis are considered socially and economically backward, they often enjoyed autonomy and evolved mixed hunter-gatherer and farming economies in ancient and medieval India. In some areas, securing Adivasi approval and support was considered important by local rulers. Larger Adivasi groups sustained their kingdoms in central India. The Minas and Gond Rajas of Garamandla and Chanda formed a kind of Adivasi aristocracy. These relations soared during the Mughal rule in India, where many of them were killed in wars between the two tribes. Under British rule, the colonial administration also encroached upon the tribal system, leading to the tribes resenting and rebelling against the British. Rising feudalism in India under British rule also worsened their relations and contributed to the social and economic devolution of the tribes. Forest as well as the farmland belonging to the tribes was taken by the British, who instead, helping the communities, imposed taxes on them. When the tribes were unable to pay, they were coerced into bonded labor. On being exposed to common infectious diseases from Eurasia, and isolated tribes of South Andaman Island were badly affected and experienced a huge population decline in 1789. Adivasi tribes were pushed into the hills after the Indo-Aryan tribes invaded their land, which is still considered a myth around 3,000 years ago. The British colonization worsens India's economic standing in 18th century under British rule. Under the newly written Indian Constitution, the Adivasis are provided with special protective provisions. In 1950, the Forest Rights Act is legislated to secure the land and forest rights of the tribes in 2006. So most of the Adivasis live in the northern eastern Indian states of Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, and Nagaland, and some also live in the hills and forests of central and southern India and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And there are also other Adivasi groups in other areas as well, but majority of them are in these areas. So Adivasis are forced to leave their land because of increasing marginalization, along with economic and ecological changes. They are also forced to leave their homes and move to urban areas for better work opportunities. While the term refers to the indigenous people, it can be broken down to Adi, earliest, and Vasi, a resident of, meaning the earliest resident. Appreciating Adivasi art and the plethora of art forms created and sustained by Adivasi's community. These art forms include Varli, Madhubani, Bill, Gond art, and so on. So raise awareness about these tribal communities. You can do by learning more about them, sharing information with your friends and family, and posting about the issues on social media. Some of the enlightening works of literature produced by the Adivasi communities and sustained through oral traditions. This will give us a better idea about their lives and history. Despite several protected provisions, the Adivasi community still faces a lot of prejudice from mainstream India. Many Adivasi children drop out of school early and are unable to continue with their education because of lack of funds, which leads to poor literacy. At the national level, it has been estimated that nearly half of the Adivasi people live below the poverty line and have social and economic hardships. Even to this day, many communities are losing their homes to economic ambitions like mining, dam building, and other large-scale development projects, leading to dispersion and displacement. There are only a handful of uncontacted tribes in the world where the government of India has prohibited travel within these nautical miles of the island. The Adivasi communities possess an invaluable treasure trove of traditions, culture, and heritage that is hard to ignore. It is important to preserve this, which cannot be done without educating ourselves more about the people who have made it. The Adivasis have made tremendous contributions to the diverse culture of Indian subcontinent. They are also experts in wildlife and nature conservation, along with sustainable agricultural practices. The Adivasis have long been marginalized, and despite government help, many of them do not have resources to break out of poverty. It is important to raise awareness about them if we want to create a more equitable world. The UN declared the years 2022 to 2032 the decade for indigenous languages. The goal is to bring attention the dying languages since most of them are not taught in schools or are used by the general public. Losing a language is losing an important facet of history and culture of people. The best way to celebrate this day and the rest of the year is woven to stand by indigenous groups. The indigenous people have the right to freely choose, however, wish to live much like any other living being on this planet. Protecting their rights also in turn protects your rights in the long run. Around 80% of the world's biodiversity is in places where indigenous groups are living. The 5,000 indigenous communities in the world are credited with having about 4,000 languages indigenous. While the indigenous communities account only for around 5% or so of the world's population, they make up 15% of the world population that is living in poverty. Indigenous communities, due to lack of awareness, have shorter lifespans as they die of preventable diseases like malaria and HIV. Studies have shown that the fauna and flora and biodiversity thrive and flourish where indigenous people reside, and they are the leaders in protecting the nature and environment. So indigenous people form an essential and crucial part of not only our planet's history, but also how human beings have come to make systems to lead fruitful lives. The indigenous people's cultures, customs, and traditions are interesting to learn about for their uniqueness and for what they have, and they teach us about the universe and the bigger picture. Language at its core builds the identity of a people. The involvement of different phonetics, grammar rules, and formal informal styles can tell one a lot about where the community has come from and how their history had shaped them. The same is case with indigenous languages. The problem lies in their endangerment, and this is why we must strive to preserve them. So it's a celebration of indigenous languages. The freedom to practice our rights on a piece of land that has shaped our communities for centuries should not be taken away from anyone. The freedom of practice, our customs, traditions, and general lifestyles is another important aspect of a living, worthwhile life. For these very reasons and many others, we should join indigenous people in their right to live and flourish, however they like. It's a celebration of freedom to live. Today is also commemorated as Suriname Indigenous Peoples Day, coinciding with the International Day of World's Indigenous Peoples Day, celebrates indigenous people who are soul of Suriname and their identity. It remembers the centuries of oppression, slavery, and forced assimilation the indigenous people went through and the aims of making things right. Indigenous peoples, particularly the Arawak and Carib, have inhabited Suriname for millennia. Among the first inhabitants were the Suriname people, from whom the country gets its name. But By the 17th century, the ethnic composition of the country changed drastically because of European settlers. British plantation owners and their slaves arrived on the shores of Suriname in 1651. 16 years later, a Dutch fleet landed and captured Suriname, kickstarting centuries of colonization. Many indigenous people died or became enslaved during the invasion. Those lucky enough to escape with their lives took refuge in the rainforest. As the Dutch continued transporting thousands of Africans to Suriname, some of them escaped and hid in the interiors of the country. Runaways who came to be known as Maroons. These runaways were taken in by the leftover indigenous tribes who constantly went to war with the Dutch. After several failed attempts to fight the tribal groups, the Dutch ultimately conceded to peaceful coexistence. Today, Suriname's indigenous population comprises a mix of island's main tribal groups and the descendants of Maroons. Most of them live in the southeastern and coastal regions of the country. In contrast, indigenous people only make up 4% of Suriname's population. But their contributions to the Suriname's freedom will never be forgotten, which is what most Surinamese people thought. As a result, Suriname decided to honor its first peoples on August 9, coinciding with the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples. Suriname Indigenous Peoples Day hopes to continue protecting and advocating for the indigenous rights. Today is also commemorated as annual Perseid meteor shower peak night on August 9th every year. The peak of Perseid meteor showers takes place where they shine the brightest. You don't need any special equipment or an expensive telescope to view these Perseid meteors. They can be seen with the naked eye in any part of the sky. However, it also depends on the weather in your location. Cloudy nights tend to block the view where only parcels of subtle glimmer can occur. But if the sky is dark and clear, you can experience this once a year phenomenon right at your home. Climb to your rooftop and lay on your back, and you don't want to miss this magnificent experience. Meteors glow due to friction occurring as they enter the atmosphere. Or if you couldn't, or if you are unable to watch live, you can watch a TV series called Curious George, showcases the Perseid meteor shower phenomenon in a great detail. Check this show out and learn more about this astronomical event. Or you can also check out another popular series available on Netflix, which also explores the grand phenomenon of Perseids. Check out Puffin Rock. It's the best show to watch to set the mood before you witness the meteor shower. Perseids travel as fast as 37 miles per hour. Comet Swift Turtle, the largest object to pass Earth repeatedly, creates the debris known as Perseids. Due to the heat of the atmosphere, the Perseids turn into a fireball that vaporizes as it enters Earth. The next visit of Swift Turtle will be in 2126. The term meteor is derived from a Greek word which means suspended in air. Today is also commemorated as Nag Panchami and celebrated in India. It is an annual celebration on the 5th day of Shravana month in the Hindu calendar. The day is only observed during the Shukla Paksha, the time when moon waxes. The day is about worshipping the snake god for removing karmic and astrological imbalances from life. People symbolically feed milk to snakes during the day, hoping that it will cure the astrological imbalance and save the family from evil. Some people also fast during the day and offer gifts to those in need. This year, let us part of this celebration, and it also reminds us for the conservation, protection of snakes in the world, as they do a lot of good to the environment in the ecosystem as predators. Hinduism is one of the ancient, earliest major religions, world religions. And after Christianity and Islam, it has the third largest adherent base. And it is also synonymously called as Sanatana Dharma, as Sanatana Dharma itself is called as Hinduism, because Hinduism as a word has arrived later, but Sanatana Dharma is ever existing as universal duty and universal rights for all the living beings. Religion is only for human beings, but Sanatana Dharma is for everyone on the planet, including plants, animals, insects, creatures. Their simple duty, their simple dharma is to carry out their duties without any expectation. So they take birth, they do their duty, and they die. They don't expect anything like humans. For humans to do everything, they expect one thing or other. Without any benefit, they don't do anything. Right? Even for the name of, even for the sake of name, fame, or some benefit in cash or kind, or in future anticipations, people are always very greedy. They do it for one or other reason, except very few, those who think that we are taking so much from the society and we need to give back to society. And many people do that also in different ways, but actual Sanatana Dharma is not of such kind. We are here for a purpose, and we should fulfill our purpose before we leave. So everyone has a universal duty to perform, that is to fulfill our purpose and perform our duty without any expectations and leave the planet. As simple as that. It's applicable for all humans, animals, plants, everything. But plants are doing their duty. Animals are doing their duty. But the notorious species on the planet, human beings are not doing, because they deviated from the Sanatana Dharma. Because they don't want to follow the rules of Sanatana Dharma. Because they are not allowing human beings to exploit the nature, exploit the planet. So they deviated. A select group deviated from Sanatana Dharma, and they created their own religion in the name of Christianity, in the name of Islam, in the name of Jainism, in the name of Buddhism, in the name of so many religions. And they created their own set of rules and regulations. Because if you are all the religions, all the people, whoever is born on this planet is born in Sanatana Dharma only. There is no other religion. That is universal religion. But because they are born in certain family which has adopted either Christianity or Islam, or they might not be adopted, but their forefathers or some generations have adopted such religions, so they automatically become part of it, and they continue to promote them. But these all religions are in favor of human beings, and they exploit plants, animals, nature, and environment. So they don't care about them. That's why today, because of these religions, there is a lot of unrest, lot of hatred, lot of discrimination among people in the name of religion, in the name of belief system, in the name of ideologies. And today, constantly, there is always a hate, and constantly there are a lot of conversions that take place, like as if they have an identity crisis. If they don't continue this kind of propaganda and convergence, they will become extinct in the next minute. So everyone in desperate race to convert as many people into their religion. And also, in this process, they are forgetting that they are destroying the cultural diversity. They are also destroying the linguistic diversity. They are also destroying various other kinds of diversity, which will destroy them, which is happening now. Because no one wants like to be same. Why no one wants to be like each other? Everyone is unique in their own way. What if every person looks like same as another person? The world will be replica of a Xerox copy or a clone of each other's. But we are not so. Unfortunately, the irony of notorious human species is that they demand, in fact, uniqueness, but they don't appreciate, they don't practice uniqueness. They want every day new variety, every moment new variety. But they want only one language, like English, which is they enforce English on everyone, or they enforce one religion like Christianity or Islam on everyone, or they enforce some other system on one or everyone. So like this, or like atheism, they are also against religions, and they neither believe any religion and they don't even believe science. They are somewhere in between, lost in the space. And these people are more harmful. At least religious people, those who are practicing religion, are little bit predictable because they are having the fear of God, whatever the name the God is given, but at least they have that fear of God. And those who believe in science, at least they have fear of some supernatural force that is controlling, that is creating so many things, that is controlling, managing, destroying, and maintaining these various systems and phenomena that are happening. But these atheists, they are notorious. They don't believe in anything and they can do anything. The kind of harm they can do to the planet, to the people, to the plants, animals, because they don't believe in anything. They say, most of them, I'm not saying everyone, because there is always exception for everything, even to my discussion. Even there are exceptions for everything. You cannot take anything for granted. When I say something also, there is an exception. But due to paucity of time, we are not getting into detail. But it says, no, they don't believe in anything, neither in science and neither in God. or any religion. That's why they become more notorious. They destroy everything. There is no control over them. They are not fearful of anything. They are only fearful about them, how insane they can become, how notorious they can become because of lack of any control. So that's why these religions or ideologies or belief systems, philosophies are a kind of control on human beings. Why we need this? Because if you are not afraid of anything, what you will do? Like what we do now. Because only Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism values each and every living species on the planet. But all other religions, they give only value to human beings. They are not concerned about nature or environment in practice. Though they have mentioned in their scriptures, but what they do? They don't worship any rivers, any plants, any animals. So they exploit them. So they destroy them. They damage them, they kill them, they eat them, and they put all kind of cruelty on them. So what is happening? Rivers are polluted. So there is no fresh drinking water. Air is polluted. And there is no pure, clean air, all of pollutants. There is no pure soil because it is contaminated, polluted with various other things because of polluted water and air. And there is a lot of deforestation that is happening. There is loss of biodiversity because even in Hinduism, forests are also treated as God. We can see Naimisharanya. The entire forest, mountain regions is treated as Narayana. So these concepts are not there in any other religion. Even if it is there, it's only in the scriptures. In reality, you don't see them. That's why what happens most of the time, they destroy everyone, including human beings. That is why today, most of them are human-made disasters. And today we are paying for that in the form of climate change, in the form of disasters. And today, not only we have been responsible as human species, we have become so notorious that we were not only responsible for the endangerment, many species also got extinct, the known and unknown. That is creating a huge imbalance in the ecosystem, in the nature, nature and environment. The food cycle also is getting disrupted. That's why more and more pandemics, more and more disasters are happening, because the imbalance is becoming more and more day by day because of our activity. And we proudly say that modern science is still in infancy. It's just 300 years. The modern science has evolved just in last 300 years. But the ancient traditional sciences have been there since billions and millions of years. That's why the planet was so sustainable. Why the entire planet got destroyed? Why the space is also destroyed with lots of junk? Because of this modern science. And because of the mindsets of this notorious human species. Today, the space is filled with debris. And today, even the earth is polluted, nature is destroyed. And today, we are also facing the risk of extinction. Even there are reports saying that by 2100, the humans will also become extinct if the same continues. Now, are we going to choose extinction? That is the way we have chosen. And we are going on, we are rampant on destroying everything on the planet because of our greed, because of lack of gratitude. We cannot live without breathing and without oxygen, which is given by the nature, and we are destroying our own nature. That means you will not get oxygen. You are drinking abundant of water, which is available free from nature, and you are polluting the same water. That means you will not have drinking water. Even water will be there, air will be there, but that will become poison. When you breathe the polluted air, your health gets spoiled. You are contracted with various respiratory diseases, illness, disorders, and slowly it will kill you. And by drinking contaminated water, you get diarrhea, dysenteries, a lot of waterborne diseases. That will also kill you. And whatever the soil is polluted, so whatever we are growing in the soil, the plants, the food grains are polluted with high contaminants, heavy metals, and fertilizers, chemicals, and whatnot. When you consume them, then because of that, you will get lots of diseases and disorders. So air is polluted, water is polluted, even the food is contaminated. Now, how you will survive? Tomorrow that is going to happen. And as the temperatures are growing, rising year by year, day by day, the glaciers are melting, which means the sea level, sea in the sense here, in a broader context, oceans. Ocean level is rising. That means the coastal areas and the islands which are in the oceans will get submerged. They will be underwater, like what now we see the Dwaraka city in Gujarat, where once our Lord Krishna has lived and his kingdom is there. Now you can see, go underwater in the ocean and see the city, submerged city of Dwaraka. Similarly, this is not what I am saying. IPCC, Intergovernment Panel for Climate Change, which is headed by United Nations, and every nation is member of that. And it's an official report from them. Most of the cities, the coastal cities, coastal regions will be submerged in coming years. Like Mumbai will be nowhere, Chennai will be nowhere. When Visakhapatnam and all these coastal cities will get submerged in the water. All the coastal areas, not just in India, across the world, and which are below sea level or just above the sea level, those countries will disappear from the map. Those islands will disappear from the planet, from the world map. Now, who is responsible for all this? The one and only one species on the planet out of 8.4 billion species, that is none other than the human beings, the notorious species on the planet. Now, who is responsible for all this? Why this notorious species is doing all this? For what? And what does this modern science, where we all are proud of, what it is doing, whether it is conserving, protecting the planet which has survived from billions and millions of years, or in last 300 years, it destroyed the entire planet. And it also destroyed the space through lot of junk, and even it polluted the space and left all the debris over there. And the debris are lying, left open. And those debris also can create, if there is a storm in the space, imagine all those debris will hit all the satellites, most of the satellites, and gone case. Entire satellites will be gone and we will have zero communication. All the science and technology, which is now using satellites, will be nowhere. We are fighting a war. We are raging a war with nature and environment where we can never win. We are not realizing that, and day by day we are going on rampant, destroying the environment, nature, planet. That's why every year we are seeing there are floods, there are avalanches, there are landslides, and villages to villages, recent Wayanad in Kerala, because of human disasters, because of human development, by unscientific development in the Western Ghats, hilly regions. Because of that, today people are paying for that. Now it is our duty not to disturb the environment, not to disturb the nature, because no matter, we have empathy for everyone who lost their lives, not just human beings. Many people, along with people, many animals died, many birds died, many plants lost their lives. We are just concerned about people. What about the plants? What about the animals? They are also species on the planet having equal right as us. What about them? Who is talking about them? We are so selfish. We are just talking about one species, which is just one species among 8.4 billion species on the planet. Are we aware? Are we conscious of what we are doing? And who is going to talk about that? Which religion talks about it? None other than Sanatana Dharma or Hindus. That's why we also need to be careful, conscious about what religion we are following, what religion we are supporting, and whether that religion is supporting the sustainable development or not. Every religion has the provisions, but the people who are promoting, the people who are following, are discriminately following it as per their convenience. Now, even the preachers, leaders are also at their convenience, very narrow-minded, only limited to people. That's why today, because they are removing divinity from the rivers, rivers are polluted, exploited, abused, misused, the water, fresh water. Today, we don't have fresh water. As forests are deforested, they are exploited for business purposes, for agricultural purposes, and for herbal, natural forest products. They are killing animals, poaching, killing, hunting. You are destroying the biodiversity. When you destroy a family, that karma will not leave you. That is, whether you believe it or not, but still, when you are destroying a plant family, when you are destroying an insect family, when you are destroying a wildlife animal family, that curse will haunt you, your family. That is why today humans are facing so much wrath of the nature, environment, and those families, because they are also have equal rights and privilege on natural resources on planet. Now, when we are doing development, at what cost? As long as we do not understand, we continue to suffer. There is no other option. The only option left to us is to learn as quickly as possible and try to change. As long as we don't change, we continue to suffer, and that is a destiny to suffer. I'm very blunt on face, but that is what is happening. You cannot escape. And today we are seeing a lot of unrest. Even the present geopolitical situations of our own nation or take many nations. Democracy is thrown out of place and military governments are forming. A lot of terrorism, terrorist organizations, extreme organizations are taking over the nations. Now, why this is happening? Why a peaceful government, democratic government is thrown out, and why these extremist organizations are taking over? All these impact the nature and environment where humans thrive and survive, and not only just humans, but plants, animals, the flora and fauna, rich diversity of cultures, traditions, and indigenous tribes. Why we are talking about all these things is everything is important. Today is Nag Panchami, so protection of snakes, conservation of snakes, abroad of conservation of animals, wildlife is also one of the topic. That's why we are talking about all these. Whether we like it or not, whether you believe or not, it's like holding a fire, a charcoal, heated charcoal in your hand. And if you say, even I don't believe this is a burning charcoal, it will burn your hand. Whether you believe it or not, it is going to burn you. That is a fact today we all are going through. Whether you accept it or not, whether you believe it or not, whether you are able to digest it or not, that is what is happening. So by accepting, by digesting it, and by taking a conscious decision so that no more such abuse, exploitation is happening, so that we can come out of this trap and help ourselves and also our fellow species on this planet. So today, when we are talking about this festival, Nag Panchami, Hinduism is not a religion, but rather a way of life that combines culture, tradition, mythology, philosophy, and beliefs that were present throughout the Indian subcontinent and counterparts. Hinduism does not have a founder, an organized and centralized administrative structure, or a strict code for its followers. Hinduism is full of festivals, celebrations, rituals, because it worships everything on the planet, the living and the non-living, because it takes care of well-being, health and well-being of everything on planet. So Nag Panchami is such an important and auspicious day for the planet. The most popular origin story of this day is from Hindu epic, though we are call it Hindu because other religions came. Otherwise, before any other religion, it was only Sanatana Dharma. Even to differentiate their religion from Sanatana Dharma, they gave a name called Hinduism, and They took most of the principles from Sanatana Dharma, but to differentiate, that's how the Hinduism word came. Only that was created by people who created new religions just to differentiate, discriminate them, because they have to refer the existing system with some name. So that's how this Hindu name came. Hinduism or Hindu word was never mentioned in any Vedas, Shastras, Upanishads, Itihasas, Puranas. Nowhere it is there. It was created by human beings only to differentiate. So we always call ourselves as the practitioners of Sanatana Dharma, that is, universal duty, universal rights. It is same for all, including human beings, plants, animals, and everyone. Our purpose on this planet is to perform our duty without any expectation before leaving this, before ending our life. As simple as that. And it is same for everyone. Just do what is your duty. And you have all the rights and privileges to perform your duty. That's all. But as we have deviated ourselves because of our vested interests, that created a lot of problem in this society. Now, when we go back to legend in Mahabharata, Takshaka, the king of snakes, bites Parikshit, the king of Kuru Empire. Sarpashastra, which has detailed account of these serpents or snakes, is conducted by Janmejaya, the son of Parikshit, to avenge his father's death. The Sarpastra, which is conducted, which is a powerful ritual to attract and pull snakes from the entire world to the yajna flames and kill them all. Takshaka, fearing for his life, seeks protection from devas, but the ritual was so strong that nothing was able to stop Takshaka. So Manasa Devi sends her son Astika to negotiate to resolve this crisis and save the snake species from certain extinction. Astika impressed Janmeyaja with his knowledge and convinced him to stop the ritual, thus saving Takshaka. This day is celebrated as Nag Panchami. So see, good and bad people were there even in mythology. That's why today we don't read, we don't watch any of these mythological stories or epics. That's why we are alien to our own knowledge, ancient knowledge, traditional system, Various Puranas talk about climate change long back. Even Vishnu Dharmottara Purana talks about climate change long back. Long back before any religion existed. It talked about climate change and how the climate change affects various elements on the planet. Now we are studying climate change. It is a new phenomenon for the modern science, but our ancient sciences spoke long back about climate change and how it impacted. And today, even archaeology, arts, and various sciences, they take references from them and they are studying. So why the propaganda which is spread across the world is to prevent us to read those scriptures as unscientific. That's why we have become dumb and we are kept away from our own ancient knowledge systems, where we have been the Vishwa Gurus for the entire world. Now we have become slaves and we are looking for others who have learned from those scriptures and have become gurus now. Our lineage is lost because of we, under the influence of propaganda, we stopped reading, knowing our own scriptures, which are abundance of knowledge in the world. So today, devotees believe that praying to snakes, protecting them, conserving them, can bring prosperity and remove evil. So why this milk is offered on this day, though the snakes doesn't drink milk? Actually, there is also a misconception that snakes drink milk. And even many Hindus also don't know, or because they are also not kept away from all these scriptures, they don't, because of this propaganda which is strongly promoted by the so-called modern scientific community, or because they cannot, this is beyond the scope of science. They don't understand. They think that they can answer everything with the science, but there are many things they cannot answer with science. Even today, they don't know many diseases are prevailing. We are doing a lot of commemorations daily. We don't know why things are happening. Science has no answers for it because science is in its still infancy. And what makes it more vulnerable is the practitioners of that science. And they are more vulnerable. They have a lot of assumptions, preconceived notions, and with their own vested interests, they create more harm to the planet. That is what is happening. Science, in its purest form, does not create any harm. But the practitioners of that science create so much harm to the planet, to themselves, to others. This is what is happening. We cannot blame any science. But the practitioners of science, our ancient practitioners of science were Maharshis, yogis, upasakas, those jnanis who protected them, who gave them only to those who can really protect and use it for good purposes. Now, everyone is using. So everyone using for their vested interests, not for common good. They are using for their own benefit. That is why it is creating havoc. And today, we are seeing everyone wants their own benefit. That's why the world is getting destroyed. And that's why these millions and billions of years where the world was protected, planet was safe, now it is being destroyed because everyone is exploiting this technology, sciences for their own personal greeds and gains. They are not bothered about others. They are bothered about themselves, how rich they can be, how wealthy they can be, how powerful they can be. That is what destroying the planet. And that is what also destroying them. They don't realize. But along with them, they are also destroying many others and also the planet. So, why this tradition of milk to snakes when snake doesn't drink milk? And even that is also myth. Snakes do drink milk, but they do not drink lots of milk. That is also. Generally, they don't drink milk, but when we look at the mythology, the Adishesha, where he resides, of course, non-Hindus might not be so very well versed, but Hindus know that Adishesha, where the Lord Vishnu resides, is in the Milky Ocean. Right? So why we offer, or why Hindus offer milk to the snake god is they are offering milk where the Adishesha, where the snake god resides, in the Pal Kadali, that is the ocean of milk, the Milky Ocean. So that which is the purest form on the planet. Why we are doing this conference? Because the breast milk, which is the purest form on the planet, that is a nectar, that is the Amrita, that is the divine nectar, which gives immortality, which keeps away from death and diseases. That's why even Naga Panchami also coincides with this breastfeeding week celebrations. Because the purest form which we can offer to anyone is milk, the kshira, the amruta, the nectar. So that's why milk is offered. And as snake god, the Adishesha, resides in Pal Kadal, that is the ocean of milk, the Milky Ocean. That's why we offer milk, so that the snake is in a symbolic way of putting milk, so that the snake resides in milk. But again, here also, we need to think of this ritual. See, again, that should be offered as a symbolically, It doesn't mean you pour milk as much as, you drench and you submerge entire thing into milk and flood the entire space. You should also think, consciously, logically, practically also. Based on the size, based on other factors, the milk should be offered according. See, what sometimes, we lose that consciousness. And what happens? There is a small ant hole where the snake lives, and we are offering as a symbol of milk. Everyone pours 1 liter of milk, say, just assume. What will happen? The liters of milk, if say 1,000 devotees come, 1,000 liters of milk, what will happen to that anthill? Just imagine. Right? The entire anthill will be submerged in the milk. So that should not be done. That's what, the major concern here is people don't know the science of doing that, don't know the reason behind it. Because someone tells them, they are doing it. That's the problem. Especially nowadays, lot of dilemma is there because they don't understand what is the reason, logic behind that. There are many such reasons, logics behind it. I am just telling one thing to understand it simply. But when you will know all these things, when you go back and read Vedas, Puranas, Itihasas, Upanishads, in that there is mention of all these. Now you might say, we are not so clever, we are not even able to study this 10th class, 12th class subject. What, sir, you are telling to go back and study Vedas, Puranas? You forget about it. We cannot read. We are not able to understand biology, physics, chemistry. And you are telling us to go back and read all those Vedas, Puranas, which is very difficult to understand. Right? Now, it is very difficult. Yes, I also agree. That's why many people don't go to that. And not everyone is fortunate. We need to understand that also. Not everything is everyone's cup of tea. This is famous, very popular idiom. Right? Why they say not everything is everyone's cup of tea? Because we are not interested in that in the very first place. Right? We don't have any inclination, passion towards it. and we don't find our interests in that. It may be due to economic interest, personal interest, or due to various reasons. So it does that mean you have to criticize them? Does that mean you abuse them? Does that mean you devalue them, demean them? Right? This is what's happening. See, a common sense question I will ask you, everyone on this platform. What authority one has to talk on a topic? Now, who is eligible? Who has the authority to talk any subject? Right? Those who have studied it, right? Those who have certain qualification in it. Those who are certified in it. Right? Only those will be eligible to comment or talk or give a statement on it. Right? Hope everyone agrees with that. That's why we have all these degrees, doctorates, postdoctorals, all these certificates. And that doesn't certify that you are master of everything. Does any certificate give you like that? No. You cannot master everything in this world. You can just master in one subject, one topic, one discipline. Of course, you can do it multiple disciplines, one after the other. There are very clever, outsmart. They think they are very clever than others. They enroll in 20 degrees at a time and they complete. I see many people, they put a long list of degrees. Then I just, out of curiosity, I asked, what's your age? When I see a resume, a long resume, I just ask one question. With lots of qualifications, I just ask one answer. One question, what's your age? We all know, right? At what age you will be entering the school? At what age you will be reaching 5th class? At what age you will be reaching 10th class? At what age you will be completing +2, that is intermediate or senior secondary? At what age you will be completing graduation? 10th by 15 years, or maybe 13 to 15 years if you are joined early. Or if you are, of course, there is always an exception, as I mentioned. So, inter, 15 to 17 years. Degree, 18 to 21 years. If you joined early, otherwise 21 years, by 21 years. PG, by 23 or 24 years. And PhD, or if you are doing MPhil, another 2 years, 25 to 27 years. And PhD, another 3 to 5 years. That is 30 to 32 years. So this is those who are studying. To get a PhD, you need to have minimum 32 years in one discipline. Right? Earlier, there was no provision to study multiple courses, and that was illegal. Even recently also UGC told, and that is also not on records. I mean, there is still that clarity has to come, but it has said that you can pursue one short-term course and one long-term course. And now a little bit ambiguity is there, and little bit because the world is demanding multiple skill sets. So now it is also said that to meet that skill set, one can do it in regular mode and one can be done in the distance mode or online learning mode to meet this skill demand. So just imagine when someone puts their resume, so many degrees, and comes to you, it's a simple common sense logic. And you can easily trace out what he might have done, right? I saw one resume in this platform only, long back, not now, many years back, where he has applied for a seminar which we conducted, and it surpassed all the senior professors' qualifications. And we were just wondering how this fellow, we got such a Nobel laureate kind of person, so many qualifications and all. He did not mention his age, anything. Generally, we do not do on personal these things, mentioning date of birth and all. We just mention, some people don't even mention the years also, because they're, they get caught easily, because all will be in 1 year. So they just mention course and year, this institution name. So we got one such a beautiful CV with lots of that ran around 50 pages, I think so. So many events, so many, all that. And when we saw that, and because we need to cross check also, I just inquired. Then he was humble enough to admit. And anyway, he has to admit, otherwise there is no other way. So the same logic applies. So I asked, what's your age? And I asked, which year you have done all these things. Then that fellow, he joined, many courses at a time. In all universities, institutes, he applied simultaneously in the same academic year. He joined. I don't know how he managed writing exams, because most of the exams fall in the same period, 1 month here or there, and many exams clash. Even in our majority of universities also, we have facing that problem, semester exam, even if we have offering PG diploma courses or UG courses or some additional choice courses or PG courses also, somewhere or other some exam will clash. In spite of taking so much precautions also, unless and until we have specifically, planned that this will be for both. I mean, the PG students can take PG diploma in first year, and also they can do one more PG diploma in the second year. This is widely practiced in central and state universities, so that they have additional qualification. So in such way, you can do, but all the PG exams will be on the same this thing, unless and until sometimes it happens that management, engineering, or architecture, they have little bit different dates. So exploiting this, what people, that person also had that. Now earlier, that problem was, that much awareness was not there because of this lack of technology also, and lack of awareness of use of technology also. So what happened? So when we verified, when we just cross-checked, all were like that. Without knowing one university to other, he applied to all, whichever, he just paid the fees and he got it somehow. And we didn't get into all those things. Of course, I know I don't want to reveal on this platform. And he got many such degrees and he's putting it in his resume. But that is not valid. If it goes to the UGC notice, a copy to them, they will cancel all the certificates. And, he will end up with none of them. Legally, they will cancel all the certificates. You are not permitted to do so. Even many people know that they are not permitted legally to do so, but they say, We don't keep all certificates at once, only based on the job. We keep one certificate. Based on the job, based on the requirement, we only show one degree at a time. But you can be easily get caught. Be careful. Don't do that. Only do when sometimes you, but don't do like that too many. One or two as a backup plan. See where you are not interested or you are forcibly joined that course, or you have anticipation, a strong gut feeling that you will not be able to complete that course due to various reasons, or you have some family hardships or some expected, or some things happen. So as a safe side, people also apply in distance or some other alternative. That is fine, okay. Even if you are and you are conscious about that, and you are only going to use it as a backup plan if something goes on. So that is different. So why we are talking about all these things is, the science, especially how you are going to acquire the kind of knowledge or the kind of thing without proper understanding. If you do such things without knowing the reason why you are doing, if you do it without understanding the purpose, just to have a doctor in front of your name, if you do PhD, or if you, most of these people get honorary doctorates, or, even if they do the regular thing also, it is like a PG thesis. Submit, forget. So nothing more great about it. That's why many people lost interest in doing PhD itself. Better do multiple PGs one after the other instead of doing PhDs. No, it doesn't have value unless and until you are in teaching field, because you required a professor job or a teaching field. They mandate, that's why people are doing, and they get fellowship. That is also one kind of survival for next 3 years or 5 years. So people are doing. Some are genuinely doing. It's not that everyone is doing like that, but most of them for their livelihood, to secure their, livelihood temporarily or permanently or later. So they are doing. Of course, why we are discussing all this is people have their own interests and they want to gain that benefit even at the cost of exploiting the opportunities, exploiting the resources. That's why, these things happen. Now, we don't think for a common good. In this rat race, what happens? People think of their own self. They become more selfish, more mean, and they continue to exploit, they continue to deprive, they continue to exploit such situations, and that create a lot of issues for others. Others are deprived of their opportunities, others are deprived of their rights. That's how, if some person is, deprived of something, because we have limited resources, we need to understand. We have limited opportunities. If only one person is grabbing everything, what some other person is getting deprived of it, right? Now, without understanding that, if you think that everything I only should own, then that is you are depriving many others of their survival. Now you want the entire planet to be only used for humans. Now what the other creatures, other species, this 8.4 billion species, what they will do, where they will go? Do they have any other planet to go? That is also, for them, this is the only planet they have. And like you, like human beings, they cannot alter many things because they are doing just their duty. And the human beings are the one who don't do their duty. And they also, will not allow others to do their duty. By interfering, exploiting, abusing them, not just human beings, but also other species, because they are destroying their habitats, forests, so wildlife, where it will go, plants, where they will survive, animals, birds. So that's what. When we don't understand this, when you don't have this broad mindset, broad kind of thinking, when you are narrow-minded, when you are so mean, then you will not think about all these things. That's why these problems are created today. So that's why the Sanatana Dharma is the best thing to practice and follow, because it takes care of everyone, everything on the planet. So today is also Nagasaki Memorial Day. This is one of such, irrational decision that has been taken and kill a lot of people. It is a commemoration of victims of atomic bombing during World War II. See, this is the misuse of science and technology. Now, who has given you right to kill so many people? Nagasaki was the second city of the first bombing, 3 days earlier of the city, 3 days earlier. In 2017, the General Assembly adopted the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons Treaty, which contains a comprehensive set of prohibitions on participating in any nuclear weapon activities. The treaty commenced on January 22, 2021. So this is a day where atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki in Japan. So on August 6, 1945, to compel Japan to surrender and end World War II, US bomber Enola Gay dropped Little Boy, the first atomic bomb ever used in wartime, on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. This explosion killed an estimated 80,000 people, and thousands more died later because of the radiation exposure. And still now, today, we can see the impact of radiation there. Japan had caused many Allied casualties during the war, and despite the devastation, and did not surrender. As a result, US decided to drop a second atom bomb to compel Japan to surrender. On August 9, 1945, 3 days after the first hit, US bomber Boxcar dropped a bomb called Fat Man on the city of Nagasaki. The bomb contained power equivalent to 22,000 of TNT. The explosion has devastating consequences on Nagasaki, causing the death of an estimated 40,000 people. So more inhabitants died later from burns, radiation sickness, and other injuries, but the bomb effect was diminished because Nagasaki was nestled in narrow valleys between the mountains and had a smaller population. After the second bombing, Japanese Emperor Hirohito announced his country's surrender on the radio broadcast on August 15, 1945. That is Japanese time. On September 2nd, 1945, a formal surrender agreement was signed aboard the American battleship USS Missouri, anchored in Tokyo Bay, leading to the end of World War II. So the two bombings caused the deaths of an estimated 70,000 to 135,000 people in Hiroshima and 60,000 to 80,000 people in Nagasaki. For that reason, Nagasaki Memorial Day is observed to commemorate the bombing victims, promote peace, and raise awareness of the importance of avoiding more wars and the destructive potential of nuclear weapons. This is the misuse of science and technology. It should be used for good purposes, not for killing people like this. So this is what people with vested interests, They think of themselves at any cost winning, at any cost making them to surrender. Now, people misuse it, and that's why we have to pay for it. And not only those people who are misused, but the others who are very innocent, they also are paying for that. Now, that's why ancient sciences have been safeguarded and were not available to everyone, because it was only available to those who were strong enough, good enough to hold them, practice them, and take it forward. Otherwise, it will be like a stone in a mad person, no? And he can do anything. He or she can do anything with that stone. Can hurt himself or herself, or can hurt others. Like that, today's science has become in the hands of people with vested interests and for their own selfish needs. And that's why today the world is suffering because of such people, of such practitioners or promoters of such sciences. So with this, we shall end today's commemorations. And thank you everyone for patiently listening to the commemorations. And quickly, we'll move on to, presentations. So let's check chat box if anyone has presentation. All the presenters who are waiting to make their presentations, kindly share the details as mentioned on the screen in the chat box. You have to follow the instructions. Every day we are telling and every day we are displaying. In spite of that, if you don't follow, then you are only going to face the problem. We can't help you. So follow the instructions on the screen, share your details as per the instructions, then we can invite you for the presentation. Rania Zanetti, you have to share your details. Can you see the screen? Yesterday also, we requested you to share the details. You are not sharing. You are requesting for presentation, but you need to share your details as well in the chat box. So quickly share so that we can invite you. So you have to share, type in the chat box your name. First thing is your topic, your name, occupation, place. See, whatever you are sharing in the Google form, that is different. Whatever you are sharing in the mail, that is different. But whatever you are sharing here, because by filling the form, you are not everyone attends, those who are filling the form. And even if you are attending, you need to follow the instruction. That's why many people face problems, because you don't follow it. And why others will follow if you don't follow? Right? If you are not interested, others will also will not be interested to take up your work. You are demotivating them. You are discouraging them. They will also ignore your efforts if you don't value others' efforts. Don't do like that. Okay. Tomorrow you do it. Today we will end this session. You read the instructions on the screen or you go to website, do it. Yeah, Sanjay Sardar, do you have any query? Put it in chat box. If you have any, you can use chat box. Please use chat box. Sanjay Sardar, if you have any query. The feedback form has been shared in the form of polls. See, there is a screen that is visible. You need to share the details in that format, like your name. Do you understand English? Can you read English? Can you read the screen by yourself? There is a format. There are instructions on the screen. What is mentioned there? Can you read it after the international conference website and e-certificate link? What is mentioned there? Can you read it? What is there? Requesting here. What is mentioned here? Just a second. What is mentioned from here? See, read the cursor. What is? I'm pointing to the section. Now, what is mentioned there? Registered resource persons, speakers, presenters, panelists waiting for their presentations. Share the following presentation details to host and as well as Dr. Ravindra, who is moderator, co-host in Zoom chat, indicating your presence. So what are the details you need to share? Your topic, presentation title, all in one message, your full name, occupation, place, duration. That is the details you need to share once you join the conference, so that the organizer knows that you are available and you are going to present this topic and waiting for the approval. So this is displayed from the day one. Every day it is being shown. So that means people are not at all conscious about the things that are happening around. This is a problem. They don't follow instructions and they face problem. When instructions are very clear, I am telling you, you are not following. So this is the format that is required. And once After sharing details, wait for your turn till host or the co-host or the moderator invites you as per the queue order of the chat messages or presentation request on first come, first serve basis. So this is the instruction which is being displayed. So the presentation guidelines are there here in this link. You can visit this link and read the presentation guidelines. And this is the website link where you'll get all details about conference and the live proceedings, recordings. And this is the registration link to register. And this is the joining link to join directly with this link, or you can open Zoom app and enter this ID and passcode. And for any e-certificate related queries, this is the link where you can access this. So all the details are there here. Still, why you are not able to follow? Then what is stopping you to share details? What is stopping you to make a request? Okay, tomorrow, now it's already. So tomorrow you join and immediately share these details in the chat box and we will take it up. Don't worry, every day, whichever day you are attending, you are getting a participation certificate. So there is no loss and you are gaining a lot of information. So quickly fill up the feedback form, which has been shared in the form of polls. It is mandatory for everyone, including presenters and participants. So see you all tomorrow at the same time. Take care. Good night.